Hello everyone, and welcome back to History Buff 41. And as promised, in our short video, we are taking a look at something experimental. What you see before you is a 1903 A3 Springfield from World War II, made by Remington. It is not necessarily the model that was used for what we're about to talk about, but it will suffice. During World War I, the 1903 Springfield was the standard issue military rifle to the United States. However, it was not the one that was the most widely used. That falls to the model 1917. The 1903s were made by Springfield Armory and Rock Island, and there was they were bolt action rifles. Let me back up a minute. They were bolt action rifles, and for those of you who don't know how a bolt action rifle works, is you have your ammunition loaded down in here, and then you squeeze your trigger, and when you fire the gun, you work this bolt manually, pull it back, that ejects the spent round, and when you push it forward, I want to tilt it up so you can see inside, there's a little follower here that's spring loaded, and it pushes the rounds that are in there up, and so when you pull this forward, that loads the next round, and it is a manual operation. Well, in World War I, there was a lot of trench fighting, as we all know, and the trenches were pretty far apart. But when you got in those trenches, it became very close combat, and you needed to be able to get out a lot of shots, a lot of lead in a short period of time in very close quarters. And so different countries tried different things to increase the rate of fire for the rifles used. And one of the things that the United States did was they developed something called the Pedersen Device, after its inventor, Mr. John Pedersen, which would essentially convert this 1903 Springfield rifle into a 30 caliber semi-automatic pistol, or semi-automatic rifle, I should say, not pistol. And so the difference with a semi-auto is when you squeeze the trigger, a round comes off, and then it is automatically, the spent shell casing is automatically ejected, and another one is loaded without having to manually operate the bolt, like I showed you just a few minutes ago. And so basically what they would do, the idea was, the infantry crossing no man's land would, within probably around 50 yards or so, they would use it as a bolt action rifle, and then in about 50 yards or so from the enemy trench, they would remove the bolt and they would insert the Pedersen device into their 03 Springfields. And the 03 Springfields were specifically made for this. They were called the 1903 Mark I. And on the opposite side, you can tell those because up here it'll say 1903 Mark I, and there will be a cutout here for ejecting the brass shell casing. But they would pull this bolt out, and they would then insert the Pedersen device. And that turned this bolt action rifle into a semi-automatic rifle, and they would go into the trenches with that. And there was a whole bunch of gear associated with the Pedersen device, and that's actually what we're going to take a look at. And we'll get this out of the way. And we will take a look at this bag here. The Pedersen device was fed by a magazine, a detachable magazine of approximately 40 rounds, and it was a stick mag, kind of similar to what you would see for maybe a Thompson or something of that nature, and they were carried in a bag like this one. And if we open it up, we can see slots for 5 different magazines. And of course here we have our model 1910 belt hanger. This would hang off of the regular ammunition belt that they would already be carrying. Their 5-round stripper clips for the 1903 in of 30-06 ammunition. And you'd be carrying your Pedersen Device ammunition, Pedersen Device magazines in this belt. And when one was empty, you would pull it out of your gun and you would slip it, reach down and pull out a new magazine and put it back in, and you had another 40 rounds. You can see here, this one here is marked RIA, and it was made in 8 of, looks like 18. So that would be, what, August of 1918? And so that's essentially what was used to carry their ammunition in. Interestingly, there were about 65,000 of the Pedersen devices made between 1918 to 1920. However, the war ended before these were ever put into any massive use or were massively issued to troops. And so they were never used in combat, and they were only used in experimental or test stages. And the Pedersen devices eventually sat in storage and were eventually melted down in the interwar years. And currently there's only about a half a dozen or so, maybe a dozen, known examples of the Pedersen device. And if you want some more information on the development of this, you can go to See an Arsenal. They have a great video on the 1903 Springfield and the Pedersen device and how it was used, and even have some video of them actually shooting a Pedersen device. So anyway, that's it for this episode. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to catch more of our content or make sure that you don't miss our content, be sure to ring that little notification bell. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.